Have you ever heard the history of King James and his influence on the modern day religions of the world? If you haven't, today we are going to dive very deep into who King James was and the said influence on the religions of today's modern society. If you're new, thank you for stopping by. This is Hypnovision Studios, and I am your host, Nicholas. But today I am also going to show you why Neville Goddard says the secret is the fill-in. For everyone that is a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. My channel is built on self-learning and sharing with everyone out there, so I do understand that belief systems quite literally can be deeply ingrained in each and every one of us. So please take everything with an open mind as I start to unfold the history of King James. But I'm doing this through a very unique perspective, and that is my perspective. So I'm going to also show you how the inner workings of my mind came to go down these rabbit holes and the self-inquiries that followed. So let's start with a very basic introduction of who King James was. King James from Scotland is a complex historical figure deeply connected to both the King James Bible and the lesser-known work titled as Demonology. These two works reflect different facets of his reign, one spiritual and unifying, and the other fearful and superstitious. Now, this is something I want to point out because there's a little bit of duality of life right here. On the one hand, King James sought to unify what is known as religion of the time into a singular belief system. On the other hand, he was very, very superstitious and very fearful. Now that is at the heart of what I am trying to get at with this whole video today, overcoming the fear. Is it better to be a fearless man of God or to be a fearful man of God? It really hinges off of what we feel inside and how we think about those feelings and how we are generating the emotional responses. So I'm going to try to break all of this stuff down in a very unique way, but I'm going to kind of stop in between both of these and go back and forth to show you and highlight the differences. So King James from 1566 to 1625 ruled Scotland as James the Fifth, I believe that is. Correct me if I'm wrong, and this is an opportunity for anyone to drop some comments and let me know what you're thinking, or possibly let me know if there's something that I overlooked or you see something different than the way that I do. I encourage the comments, actually. He was son of Mary, Queen of Scots, a highly educated monarch who believed strongly in divine rights of kings. He was fascinated by religion, witchcraft, and political unity. So the very man who is responsible for writing the King James Bible was fascinated with witchcraft, and that is very interesting. So the King James Bible of 1611, a translation of the Bible into English, commissioned by King James in 1604 and completed in 1611. Known as the Authorized Version, it became the most influential English Bible of the time. And the reason it was created was to settle religious differences between Puritans and the Church of England, to produce a standardized version of the Bible that would reinforce religious unity and royal authority. Previous translations like the Geneva Bible had marginal notes that criticized the monarch, which James didn't like. So it's quite clear, right from that very understanding, to unify the royal authority of things. So is it true that there is separation between the church and the state? Because it seems to be interwoven more than anyone could ever imagine. On the other hand, when we talk about imagining things, imagination, we have Neville Goddard's work. And a lot of his work is centered around the subconscious mind and how the conscious and subconscious work together above and below, and what is within is always without. So I want to share this with you also. The conscious impressions on the subconscious is always accepted as true. Now, let's use an analogy right here, because when we talk about the soul of a man or a woman or the soul of a human being, we have the analogy of the soul, right? This is a homophone. S-O-U-L, the soul of a human, or the S-O-I-L, the soul of Mother Earth, the dirt in which we plant things into. Mother Earth will grow whatever kind of seeds that we plant into the soul. It doesn't matter if it's corn, doesn't matter if it's a tree, doesn't matter if it's weeds, doesn't matter if it's grass. Whatever is put into the ground and is given water and in sunlight, it shall grow up out of the ground. So by this very understanding, if we take our thoughts and plant them down into our soul and then charge them emotionally, we will start to grow these seeds. This is called manifestation. So by this very understanding, if you see thoughts as being neither good or bad, it is how we are emotionally charging them that is going to give you a very different perception on what is happening from your first person view. Because honestly, I don't feel one way or another about certain things. I have no feelings about it. But if there is something that I give a negative feeling to, then I start to grow that, right, by giving it the emotion or the energy. Very interesting when you start to think about it like this. And this whole information that I'm sharing with you about King James actually came from a lot of AI prompting. The self-inquiry, the questions that I have when I start to look at King James and his connection with demonology. Now, do I think he was an evil person? I really don't know, because I wasn't alive at the time. I don't know him. So there is the assumption aspect, to assume things based upon how we feel and what we think about it. So for me, I started to dig down into this with a very different point of view. So I'm going to give you a little bit more history behind King James, and then I will start to move into where my prompts started to really take shape. King James himself did not write or translate everything in the Bible, but it does explore in the demonology of things in 1597. This is long before the official King James Bible came out. In 1597, the book of Demonology, it explores witchcraft, necromancy, possession, sorcery, and demons, written in the form of a dialogue between two characters. Very interesting. Witchcraft, necromancy, possession, sorcery, and demons. Why he wrote it? James was personally had an obsession with witchcraft after his voyage to Denmark in 1590, where he encountered witch trials. He believed witches tried to kill him and his wife via supernatural storms during their return trip. He attended an overseas witch trial in Scotland, such as the North Berwick witch trials. Some of the main themes in demonology is witchcraft is real and dangerous. Demons can possess people or make pacts with them. It is the Christian duty to identify and eradicate witches. Eradicate. Is that an evil deed, or is it a self-identification that it is your job to eradicate people who don't believe what you believe? This, to me, is a very slippery slope of trying to understand why he was doing something, and how can we reflect on that in the present moment. Do we need to eradicate people? Do we need to go around and try to save people? Save them from what? Save them from themselves? Or do we need to keep reminding them of Jesus coming to save them from their sins? This is very interesting. It's very deep psychologically. And I also will share with you in just a few minutes Neville's point of view on Jesus in general. So the impact of this was it fueled the Scottish and English witch hunts, influenced William Shakespeare's Macbeth, which includes themes of witchcraft and prophecy. Seen as part of the witch hunt hysteria and moral panic of the era, there's all that fear-mongering. King James' Demonology was written to condemn the practice of witchcraft and spell casting, that he believed that spells were real, They were derived their powers from demons, not the witches themselves. Anyone using spells was in the league with Satan, knowingly or unknowingly. Very interesting. James described three kinds of magic: necromancy, which means to communicate with the dead; sorcery or divination, fortune telling, astrology, and using objects; and witchcraft, calling on demons to cause harm to others. So, one thing that I guess at the time that King James probably didn't really realize was the internal dialogues and the internal self-talk, and using the power of I am within your own self-speech, whether you say it to yourself internally or you speak it out with your voice. Now, this influenced a lot of those witch trials where people were systematically burned at the stake, and all kinds of terrible things happened to people after this. So I want to get into the root of some of this stuff because it is very interesting. King James saw spells as dangerous tools of Satan, not because they worked the way Hollywood shows, but because he believed they represented rebellion against divine order. Now, if you remember in the very beginning when I started reading this, it was about the royal authority. So that says it all. To me, it does. But in reality, many people accused of spells and witchcraft were midwives, healers, outsiders, victims of community fear, envy, or misfortune. Let me reread that last part. Victims of community fear. People fear things that are different than them or different beliefs. How many people have been in certain religions and then look at another belief system in another church or another denomination and accuse that denomination or religion of not being in the same alignment, meaning it is an occult. They are practicing cult stuff. So, very interesting. But I want to really get into the deeper aspect of the word church. This is part of where my prompts start to take place, because trying to understand the English language, which came from a lot of this stuff in the King James Version Bible as it was translated into English. So a lot of words were replaced. Some words were watered down, and we can see this in modern society now where people don't know how to identify what a woman is. And that's very interesting. So the word church, the etymology of that, comes from the Old English meaning of circes, or circle, or circus. This traces back to the Greek understanding of, I can't even say this, but I'm going to try it. Kyriakon, meaning of the Lord, as in the Lord's house. In Scots, this became the word kirk, K-I-R-K. There's a strange overlap in Circes, the Greek enchantress, who turned men into animals, while linguists say the similar is coincidental. Some researchers argue that the word church carries linguistic and symbolic baggage from both Christian and pre-Christian goddess worship traditions. Many early churches were built on pagan sacred sites. The kirk or church in Scotland and other religions often absorbed Celtic, Norse, and local rituals, rebranding them as Christians. So that is very interesting. The word church comes from the word kirk, which comes from the word Circes, an enchantress. Very interesting. The Scottish kirk, influenced by demonology, was especially brutal during the 16th and 17th centuries, where over 4,000 accused witches in Scotland, many were tortured and burned. The church led moral purges, where anything not controlled by them, such as herbal healing, folk songs, fertility rites, were also called the devil's work. This led to many double standards where people were demonized for the same practices that early pagan priesthoods Druids or mystics had used for centuries. Rituals for nature, healing, or protection. Both priests wore robes, used incense, invoked invisible powers, and it just depended on how they were allowed to perform these rituals. Now, this is very interesting because things that you can't see, well, the biggest part of that right there that is hidden is the imagination, right? The inner part of every human being, your first person view coming from your imagination, coming from your five sensory input. I find it all to be very interesting. So there is a very deep, dark, hidden secret behind the whole formation of the King James Bible. And imagination, guys, I want you to see this very clearly. You are absolutely right. The word imagination can be broken down. I, as in the self, magi, the wise ones, the sorcerers, the conscious creators. Nation, a realm, a kingdom, a plane of existence. I, as in me, I, as in you, when you say it to yourself. Conscious creation, meaning I know what seeds I am planting into the ground so that I can bear the fruit of said seeds. So self-talk, self-realization, and using imagination to be wise about what thoughts you are tapping into and emotionally charging. When we start to clamp down the way King James did to try to unify, right? He was trying to unify the authority of the king, right? So if you didn't go along or get along with that point of view, you were marked as being someone who was in bed with Satan. Very interesting how this eventually would influence the greater religious standpoints that we see in modern society. But there is something else I want to show you guys here. From the ages of 0 to 7, the human brain operates predominantly in theta state, the same state used in hypnosis and deep meditation. I'm going to show this to you right here, guys. Let me get there we go. Children observe beliefs without questioning. Everything is taken as literal truth. Symbolism becomes reality, whether it's angels, demons, Santa Claus, or shame-based authority. So if a child is told there is a red man with horns watching them, guess what? That creates fear in the subconscious. That God loves them, but will also send them to hell to burn forever. That their natural desires are evil or sinful. Now this happens the first 7 years of our lives. Very interesting because they don't question if something is real. We go back over here. Neville says the subconscious does not question if it's factual or not. It accepts something as real. If we plant seeds in the ground in Mother Nature does not question if this is going to grow corn, if it's going to grow apples, if it's going to grow anything else. It just accepts what is planted and it starts to grow. So we can see through this metaphoric understanding how all of this really does affect the human psyche, which is encapsulated inside of the skull in complete darkness. Our only outlet to the outside world is our eyeballs, which are sucking in that light that is all around us, and our brain is having to decode things. So things that are planted in our brains as a very young child are deeply rooted inside who we are as adults. Church and moon magic. Now, if you are familiar with William Donahue, he has talked about this before. The term moon magic refers to emotional cycles, illusions, tides, and hidden influence. Using fear of sin to emotionally bind people, trying to tying community identity to obedience. If you disobey, you will lose your place. This also creates trauma bonds where the believer and authority, God equals love, but is also wrath. Why would God be creating wrath? It makes no sense. Using ritualized guilt, confession, repentance, and redemption as emotional control loops. This is not spiritual growth. This is emotional bondage under the guise of faith. This is why it's so important to have your own personal discernment, your own personal understanding, and to really learn to know yourself. Not what somebody else told you as a child, not someone else's interpretation. Because to me, I will also tell you guys, this is black and white thinking. Because someone else could look at this and tell you what their interpretation of it is and try to make you believe it, try to make you agree with it. It's very interesting. So, again, the analogy of the soul and how things are planted, and whether it's the subconscious part of the human mind, accepting whatever it is that you are telling yourself as true, and the metaphor of planting in the soul of Mother Earth. So Neville Goddard's work in the very last page of The Secret is Filling, instead of believing in God or Jesus, believe you are God or you are Jesus. He that believeth on me, the works that I do, so shall he also do. And this is from John 14:12. And he goes on to say that Jesus did not think that it was strange or out of place to believe that he was one with God. So by this very understanding, why would I need Jesus to come into my life if I am already one with God? So that is the fallacy of someone who had superstition about witches and imagination, because truthfully, what you cannot see is the imagination. Let's just be honest with this, guys. I find it to be very interesting for myself, very enlightening for myself, and it has helped me personally to not feel bad about a man who died for my sins. Neville Goddard's work is based around the subconscious, and every man, including Jesus, said that you can do what I can do, if not better than how I do it. So Jesus did not think it was weird to believe and to know that he was one with God. And Jesus was also telling us that you are the light of the world, meaning you can do the same works that I do once you realize that you were already one with God. You were already one with the Creator. You don't have to ask for something to come into your life when it is already part of your life. This is all about the belief systems that form around us when we are children. And this has been going on for many generations. And for me, when I started to self-reflect on a lot of this and the emotional aspect of this, right? The psychology of telling a person that they should feel bad and continuously remind them that they are unworthy, continuously remind them that they are sinners, continuously remind them that they are imperfect. It creates this emotional response within the human body because we start to send those signals from the brain into the soul, and the soul will grow whatever you plant into it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. It will accept what you tell it as true, and it will begin to manifest it. Neville's work to me has helped me in ways that I can't even begin to express to all of you out there, because, you know, for a long portion of my life, I really didn't understand how much of society could just take the viewpoint that if Jesus came to forgive me of my sins, why do we just disregard everything before his time? Why do we just have this? It started here with Jesus dying and only up into the point of the present moment. Just completely disregarding everything that came before that, as if it never happened, as if there was never a spiritual aspect to man to begin with. So King James seek to consolidate power and give the power of authority over the spiritual aspects of religion through the translation of what the Bible meant. And I'm quite sure that through translation there is much meanings that have been overlooked, left out, not accounted for, which means you have to rely on what is on the inside of you to fill in the blanks, or to rely on someone else's definition, and you accept that as true, and you plant that seed, and it starts to grow within you. So guys, my whole channel, again, is about self-learning, but it is also about sharing and not trying to force people to believe what I believe, but to show people how it helped me to change my self-concept, my self-image, my self-esteem, because it is not weird to understand that you are already one with God. So it's very interesting. So I'll finish this video with this chapter out of Neville Goddard's work. It is about prayer. So prayer, like sleep, is also the entrance into subconscious. I want to point this out to all of you out there, because this is one of the biggest things in my life that once I gained the understanding, it changed everything. It changed the paradigm. If you are always praying, how can you listen? Yes, there was an intentional pause there. If you are always praying, always asking, always sending the signal out, right? Pray, 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 but never sitting still and listening for the response. How can you understand if your prayers have been answered if you do not believe that they have already been answered? So let's read this right here. Prayer, like sleep, is also an entrance into the subconscious. When you pray, enter into your closet, and when you have, shut the door, meaning to shut out everything that is going on around you, to shut out the problems of the outside world, the chatter of people in your life or around your life, or different things that are happening externally. When you pray, go to your room, shut the door. This is meditation. Prayer is an illusion of sleep which diminishes the impression of the outer world and renders the mind more receptive to suggestions from within. The mind in prayer is in a state of relaxation, which is what we talked about a while ago, the first 7 years of our life, when we are in theta, when we don't question if something is real. When we were children, we believe that Santa Claus is real because we go to sleep and the next day there are presents under the tree. But at some point, as we get older, we start to realize that that wasn't true. So there is this coming to awakening to understand that Santa Claus was never really a real person. Prayer is not so much what you ask for as how you prepare for its reception. Whatsoever things ye desire, when you pray, believe that you have already received it, and ye shall have them. This is from Mark 12:24. The only condition required is that you believe that your prayers are already realized. I have it now, right? It's already mine. And so when I'm not selfish and when I'm not being too externalized with the things that I'm trying to achieve, I can experience it now internally. Your prayers must be answered if you assume the feeling that it would be yours if you already had it in your possession. The moment you accept the wish as an accomplished fact, the subconscious finds means for its realization. To pray successfully, then, you must yield to the wish, that is, feel the wish fulfilled. That's why the feeling is the secret. When we allow ourselves to feel, right? If we are always in the state of feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm a sinner, I'm imperfect, there is something wrong with me, I need to save other people, we can't focus on ourselves. We can't internally plant the seeds that we need for our own growth. And that is why King James was such a superstitious person and a very fearful-minded person, because he sought to control a nation. Once you are able to see something, you have a conscious choice to accept and change, or to deny and continue going on the same path. And that is called ignorance. We are ignoring a different possibility, a different perception. All of this stuff has really helped me to change my own life. And I really hope that for all of you out there, maybe it's just some clues or something that you need in your own life in different aspects. But for me, understanding hypnosis itself is so cliche that my stage name as a DJ for the longest time was Hypnotic. And in the early days, it really didn't have any connection to hypnosis. But once I started to understand Neville's work more clear and started to put a lot of stuff into my own practice, I started to understand that the power of planting your own seeds and emotionally charging them was how you cut manifestation mode on. And guys, I've created multiple streams of income just by understanding this very concept. I observe my thoughts as neither good nor bad, and I allow myself to have some time to really think about if I want to formulate a feeling around something that is coming into my life, or letting go of something, the emotional attachments of things, right? So King James, for all the things that he was and wasn't, and the demonology aspect of it, you know, believing in witchcraft and trying to eradicate that, was that a man of knowing that he was already connected with God, or was that a man who lacked the imagination to see that he was already one with God? Just how Jesus said that he was already one with the Father. The emotional aspects, if you know anything about William Donahue, he talks about this, where we never look up into the sky and see that the sunlight is present every single day. And if the sunlight goes away, all life on earth will soon perish. The sunlight is a 24-hour day cycle, right? It comes and rises every single day, not just in a story that we read and tell once a year about Jesus rising, the Son of God. There is another homophone, the Son and the Son. It's very interesting how these stories get implanted into us as children, and we just believe certain aspects of things as true without ever second guessing. But as kids, why would you even second guess or question certain things? Especially when your caregivers are the ones who are in charge of taking care of you and making sure that you're okay. Guys, I appreciate every single one of you, and this is truly one of those things to me that I've been wanting to do a video on this for some time, but I had to make sure that I was in a place where I felt very calm and relaxed in saying this stuff, because it's not about demonizing, demonizing people or vilifying people or making people seem that, what they believe is wrong. And it's not about right or wrong. It's not black and white thinking. It is to truly understand how we got to the place that we are now. It's understanding the past patterns of life in a more societal way allows us to see how those patterns, if not changed, will continue to go in the future. If you don't change something like a pattern, then you can be assured that it's going to continue in the same way. But Neville Goddard's work really has helped to highlight a lot of the stuff internally for me, and understanding that just like Jesus saying that he was one with the Father, with God, that you are too. I am too. It is the I am, right? If we look at Psalms, be still and know that I am God, meaning that God is with you, in you, around you, part of you. Everywhere you look is something that has been created. So why do we need to eradicate people? Makes no sense. And with that, guys, I'll see you very soon with another thought-provoking video. Drop some comments. Let me know what you're thinking, because I know that this can be a very contentious topic, But I do find it very interesting that King James had his hands in demonology and the Bible, the modern King James version of the Bible, to be more specific without trying to incorporate other translations. I'll see you guys very soon.